Boom. 12:30 on the freaking nose. That's how you start a webinar, people. Welcome to Amy, to Austin, Sherry, Chris, Cody, Dean, and people whose names are starting with letters later in the alphabet. We're super excited.
Shout out to Wayne. He's at the bottom. Just wanted to work from the bottom up. What's up, Wayne, Tyler, Steven?
That's right. And Steven leading off strong in the comments with a happy day after Father's Day, which I will just defer all of that to Justin since I have no offspring of my own. Although I have offered multiple times to raise one of Justin's kids for him. So we'll see.
Yep.
What's up, Jamie? What's up, Cody? How's it going, everyone? It sounds like you can hear us. But if you can verify that in the chat for me, we will get going. The email I sent out minutes before this, reminding everybody to attend, promised no chit chat and no fluff. So I want to make sure that we respect that and get into it. Justin, you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi to everybody. You just said no chit chat or fluff, so yeah. Hi, welcome, and let's do some amazing things that help our businesses grow the way we want them to.
All right, guys. I know that it's tough in the marketing world to like underscore your sincerity because that in itself can be like a marketing tactic, but I don't know how else to say it. I'm beyond excited for today's webinar because I have seen not only the content in action or the subject matter like and the results it creates in real world like circumstances like produce. But I have also seen this presentation or a version of it, probably a lesser version of it, presented by Justin. And I believe either as he was presenting it or immediately afterward, I texted him and told him, I was like, hey, Justin, do you want to do that for my audience on this date and time? Yes, you do. And so here we are, because I believe this to be just irrefutable, to steal a word from Justin's lexicon. I guess you don't own that word.
But own it. Yeah, no TM there. You have right.
I believe it to be irrefutable. I believe it to be universal, and I believe it to be invaluable. And so I'm really excited to share. The framework for today's webinar is really simple. Justin has some prepared content where he wants to, or the agenda rather, is really simple. He has some prepared content where he's going to share with you this framework and the reason that he, how he has arrived at it, the distillations that have, been run to produce today's content. And then we want to open it up to Q&A because here's what I know. A lot of webinars, right, present some carefully curated subject matter with like, the bowling bumpers on either side. And if you tiptoe outside of the lane, it kind of falls apart and never makes sense, right? And what I don't want is for you to leave this webinar feeling like it was, quality content that just might not apply to you, right? Our goal is to show you this framework and also to address any concerns or any friction or any resistance that you might feel for that could potentially stop you from using it, right? Because beyond us just shining a light on what we think is an invaluable small business framework, it only really matters if you use it. And so we want to make sure that we address any barriers, obstacles, objections, or questions that you have in order to empower you to actually put this into action to make a difference for your business and the people that you serve. Justin, how's that for context?
You're a great hype man.
Yeah, well, it's easy when you believe in the subject matter and the presenter of said subject matter. In fact, I know it's 12:30, but I'm so excited I have made myself a Paloma, and I'm literally prepared to answer questions in the chat, drink a cocktail, and watch you rock this. So feel free to share your screen and kick it off.
Awesome. Thanks. I just want to reiterate what Greg said around, I like the bowling bumper thing. Like, hey, the only way you guys can participate is to stay in the lanes of this carefully constructed thing. Otherwise, you'll derail the quality and relevance of the content. That is not the case. Like we're in a Baja off-road, like multi-purpose vehicle that you can drive this thing wherever. Like we get to slide 3 and you're like, hold on, I got questions. We'll take it off the rails. Normally I wouldn't give you want a webinar to actually do something for your business. And we're not selling anything. We're not asking you to do anything. Like I think this is like my hill to die on as an advocate for businesses. So anyway, that's all. I guess we've reiterated that significantly. So where I encourage, invite, and expect you to be an advocate for this experience for yourselves. I am going to try to help show that it is irrefutable, that it is applicable, that it is relevant, it is universal. I'm going to share those things. I believe those things to be true because I have experienced them. And I want you to call BS, or I want you to push on it, or I want you to say, yeah, but bend that into my business. That's what we'll do.
I see you skeptics out there who are like, yeah, impress me. First of all, we will. And second of all, poke holes. I encourage you, if two dots don't connect, I want you to help shape this experience by asking the questions that you feel like we may have missed.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And then I'm going to jump in like T-minus 30 seconds. What I realized is, as I was putting it together or reviewing for today too, is it is a layered, stacked presentation. I'm gonna bring a lot, and I'm gonna have my screen on. So Greg, I depend on you to interrupt and throw the red flag where you want to stop and review the play.
Fortunately, that is a strength of mine. So,
and when we're going to wrap and get all the content done, and we'll see how much interaction happens during that. And I invite it and encourage it, please, like I just said. So if we even get to the end of it, then I think Greg's going to turn the recording off. We're going to be done with the presentation part, and I will stay. I've got plenty of time to talk about your businesses specifically too. So this is here to serve you. So bend it to your will, please.
Yeah, I'll underscore what you just said. For those of you watching the recording, we're going to give you the whole framework presentation so that you don't miss any part of that. But for those of you who are here live, stick around to the end because it's going to sound like the presentation finishes, and then J-Mac and I are going to stay to answer whatever questions you have or whatever deviations or twists or turns that you need in order to make this fit for your business. That is the goal, that you'll leave confident with where and how this can serve your business.
And first big question I saw in the chat earlier, Greg, let's make sure we hit this. What is a Paloma?
Well, so I use that term pretty liberally. This is a tequila-based cocktail with fresh squeezed orange juice. And then I used a little splash of hibiscus LaCroix as like my carbonation. I don't know if hibiscus LaCroix is specifically at a Paloma, but it should be.
Phenomenal. Okay, well, that's the price of admission just paid for itself for custom cocktails from Monkey Pod Worldwide Headquarters. Okay, so other than Paloma recipes, my question earlier, it was really good, guys. Which of these things are true for you, right? Which of these things are true that you are in fact in the right place, other than being entertained by technical snafus and Greg's charisma, right? So give me a 1, 2, 3 if all three are true. Give me a 1, 2 if only 1 and 2 are true. Give me a 1, 3, and if not, throw a 0 in there. You're not in the right place. So I'd love to hear like which of these things are true.
Hold on. If you're at 0 and you don't think you're in the right place, stick around and let's address that together. That's not an invitation to just leave, but go ahead. We got 1 and 3, we got 3, we got 2, we got 1 and 3, we got 3. Ed is working on 2 for a new business. Jamie and Rob are 1, 2, and 3. Lyle's just 2. Michael's 3, 1 and 3, 1, 2. So we got a variety of all answers.
The goal is to actually share this information and have you acknowledge, okay, this is irrefutable. This does apply to my business. This is universal, and I can actually do something with it. And this will annoyingly I'll have to say slide, Greg, every time. So by the end, I hope that not only are you clear on that, you're confident that is true, but ultimately you know exactly what thing you're going to go do next in your business. Because that's the point, is that it should catalyze and compel you to go do the thing that's going to produce the most meaningful results in your business. And the thing I got to remember the things I did and didn't say now, because I've been having a one-person webinar for a little bit. Here's what I invite all of us to do. Twice. Here's what I invite all of us to do. When I'm on webinars like this, and you know what you're doing, everybody here is running a business. Everybody here knows marketing. Everybody here knows the stuff we're talking about. Matter of fact, it only reinforces my point that this is irrefutable, right? Your heart is beating whether we say that your heart is beating or not. So just acknowledging it and calling out doesn't mean all of a sudden it starts beating. These things are true in all of our businesses. So rather than asking the question, hey, am I doing this and should I pay attention? The question should be, how well am I doing this? What can I do that's going to help me actually, create one of those 3 outcomes I shared on the previous slide, right? Help me grow a more calm, organized business, help me build a business that serves me back more, or give me a clear step-by-step plan that I can go implement and do that very first thing right next. So that's what I'd have you ask. And in that way, we become, we have more agency in our experiences in webinars or seminars or conferences like this, where we can always get value out of it. So speaking of value, let's go. So irrefutable truth about your success. I'm gonna move pretty quick here, Greg. So number 1, go ahead and click that, is that your revenue as a business is directly proportionate to your customers' experience. Next slide, please. And that experience it's happening with or without your permission. It's happening with or without your consent, your intentionality, or your design. That's the most important thing. Next slide, please. Now, there are only 2 things that makes up experience. Next slide, please. And that is the marriage of message and mechanics. And where those 2 things intersect, that creates emotion. And emotion, next slide, please, is the only thing that produces behavior. And we, friends, next slide, please, are in the business of producing behaviors that produce business. That's the whole goal here. Marketing, sales, all those things is really about using message and mechanics to create an experience that produces the emotions, to produce the behaviors that create predictable, calm, organized business. That's how these chain of dominoes all work out for us. We're also in the business of building a business that we actually want, and not one we wake up one day and unfortunately have. We're gonna mirror the minds here, Greg.
I'm trying to pick up. I'm listening to the cadence, the intonation, the pauses. Yep.
Yeah. Imagine a business that actually serves you back. Next slide, please. Like, imagine a business that has predictable leads, predictable sales, and a predictable customer machine. Next slide, please. And then last one. Imagine a business where you know what's happening, you know that your customers are handled, and you know where to focus to grow. Where to focus next to grow more, right? So when we think about building a business that we want and not one we unfortunately have, give me a 1 in the chat if that statement, building a business you want and not one you wake up one day and unfortunately have, if you've ever in your experience, ever as an entrepreneur have felt that you've woken up and had a business that you unfortunately had, put a 1 in there. In my experience, got plenty. Well, there they come. 1.99. Thanks, Rob. Sweet. I believe that is actually the entrepreneurial condition. I believe that's the shared entrepreneurial experience. I believe that entrepreneurs live in a tension of building and living a life of impact on your terms, whatever that impact is, and however you're choosing to manifest that impact, but also trying to live a life that serves them today. And I call it living a life of joy, right? A life that serves us back, not as easy and effortless, but one that is joyful. And those 2 things seem to be oftentimes at odds with each other. This whole thing is about making those 2 things simultaneously true. That's the point. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. Steven says we seem to be spying in on his team's conversation. I think it's true because I think it is the entrepreneurial condition. So who am I? Greg teed some things up there a moment ago. I'll give you the relevant points.
I gave a lot of your history.
Yeah, cool. So currently the CMO of ALU. ALU has got some, it's been awesome. We're doing this right now in ALU. This is actually the 3rd time I've done it at ALU. We did it in 2016 for launching their MBA program. We did it in 2017 for opening the 2nd undergraduate campus. And I've been back for just over a year to do it all over again and expand that business. So what we're talking about has proven true 3 times in that business alone. Prior to that, and between those 2 tours of duty I just referenced, I was a president at 6th Division. If you're familiar with 6th Division, or not familiar with 6th Division, I should say, that is a partner in the Infusionsoft ecosystem and marketing automation space, where we basically helped entrepreneurs and small businesses from probably $500,000 to about $10 million in revenue do exactly what it is we're talking about here today. Next slide, please. I have 2 other small businesses in my own sort of alternate universe or alter ego life, which is really around American football. And that's Authority Football and the Toros Football Academy. We use this in both of those. So next slide, please. And the reason for this is it shows the spectrum of this working in small 5-figure startup all the way to a mature, globally recognized 8-figure business, right? And then my journey in this space actually started in the SaaS space with marketing, sales and marketing automation with Infusionsoft many years ago before I started, my journey with ALU and beyond. And then it was a really neat full circle to actually present from stage at Icon, the last Icon in 2017, for what we had used Infusionsoft and lifecycle marketing to do in ALU. So it was neat to come full circle and actually be on the stage as a user and a customer and an entrepreneur representing all of this same stuff. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. So coming back to that, how do you build a business you actually want and not one you wake up one day and unfortunately have? There's 3 steps to doing that. Okay, cool. So go ahead and click all 3. The first one is you've got to use a customer journey framework, because we talked about that is the irrefutable thing that's directly correlated to your business's growth. So we use a journey framework to map all those things. 2, a clear messaging framework, so we know what we need to be saying and when to get people to know what they need to know, to believe what they need to believe, to do what they need to do. Hence behaviors, emotions and behaviors. And then 3, you have to automate it. If you don't automate, then you can't create consistency in the customer experience. You can't create the time savings and margin that is going to serve you back with what we just got cleared that all of us want to do in the first place. And 3, you can't get the repeated data that you need to actually make the tweaks and the adjustments and so forth to make data-driven decisions to optimize this machine that we're building that's going to produce predictable leads, customers, sales, and customer experience, right? So those are the 3 things, and that's nice and simple. And of course, the 3-point framework, it is literally exactly what we do at ALU. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a systematic experience. So the customer journey is a systematic experience, no different than a roller coaster ride. Go ahead and click the next slide, please. Keep that finger ready. But not all, next slide, are created equal, right? So not all roller coasters are as effective or entertaining as others, and not all journeys are complete. How many times have you built a customer journey where you spent time, energy, and effort driving leads or building a landing page or creating an email sequence, but you didn't connect the next parts of the track? Okay, so we need, and we're going to talk more about how to create a complete customer journey. So how do we do that, and what is that framework? That framework, according to Keep and Infusionsoft, is called lifecycle marketing. At ALU, I don't even call it lifecycle marketing. It's a great word, but it actually doesn't matter, because remember, the experience is happening with or without your permission, consent, or design. It's happening with or without the name that you call this. Okay, I am not dogmatic about this, right? But lifecycle marketing is what we're talking about to create this life cycle, which I'm going to share more in a minute. So go ahead and click that next piece. So
I will, after I hold this hostage so I can inject some Greg Jenkins wisdom here. I think of your customer experience sort of like your health, right? Whether or not you focus on your health, it is still there, right? Your customer experience is omnipresent. It is happening. And the only real question is is it something that you are deliberately, improving, or that you are curating, or is it just sort of the default, right? Because if you don't focus on your health, obviously it will be affected by that. A lack of focus is going to be detrimental there. The same thing is true for your customer experience.
Thanks for the encouragement and coaching, Jade, for Greg, right? Got 2 hands, one on the clicker, one on the Paloma. So what is lifecycle marketing framework? It's actually really simple. It's a systematic way to organize, design, and measure your customer journey to create that predictable growth. These are the ingredients that make this thing actually work, right? You got to organize it, then you design it, and you have to be able to measure it so you can go improve it. Here's what I know. It almost never works like you want the very first time. So you have to measure it and find out how to go tweak it, improve it, and optimize it. Thanks. Keep going. Okay, so what is it? I'm going to go really quick, so just kind of click the slides through as we get going. So the first thing, there's 3 main parts: collect leads, then it's convert clients, and then it's create fans. In each of those, there's 3 sort of sub-stages, right? Yeah, you're flying through it pretty good there. So target, attract, capture, engage, offer, close, deliver, impress, and multiply. Hold right there. All really great. I don't need to explain all the details of each of those. We're going to look at some examples of those in a minute. The one that makes the whole thing work is actually the last one. It's multiply, okay? Multiply is about how you get people to buy more, buy again, or tell others. And it's not until you get to that point and string the train tracks or the roller coaster tracks all the way through it. If you don't string it all the way through, you don't actually create the flywheel that creates the predictability that we've been talking about, and ultimately the growth that we've been talking about. And until then, everything will be brute force driving new leads through this process. It is the flywheel that actually starts to serve you back. If you don't get there, you're still going uphill. Click that next slide, please. And forgive my delay because I know there's a slight delay before I see it, right? So anyway, once you do that, what happens is people buy more, buy again, or tell others. And so the customers that have already bought from you, they get in line to buy again, or they line up to buy again, but they skip all the front of the line. They don't need to be acquired again. They don't need to be nurtured again, right? So what happens is your cost of acquisition goes down. The speed of your sales increases and the time of your sales decreases, right? And the people that they tell already know, like, and trust who has referred to them. So they skip the line also. If everything we're doing is about behavior comes from emotion, how do we hack that emotion? How do we accelerate the emotions that we actually want? And of course, it's through that multiply last stage that is what creates this. I don't think there's a person on this webinar that doesn't know everything I've just said and doesn't even, believe it, right? The question is, how well are we actually doing it, and how well are we actually investing in making that true only every single time? So
yeah, let me. I think that the magic of lifecycle marketing is not acknowledging these stages. Like, these stages exist, and most people even have something in each of them, right? The magic is in acknowledging that they are cohesive and fluid and part of an overarching strategy, right? Because what happens as small businesses is oftentimes we focus on these as independent or disjointed strategies, and it produces a truncated or disjointed customer experience because we forget to tie them together, right? So it's the thread between these, not necessarily that you're missing one specific stage, but that they are together collectively more powerful than any of these individual stages on their own. Jamie said maybe the magic is actually doing them. Yeah, which is fair also.
I mean, that is actually it. And hence the end of this is to get clear for all of us, like, okay, cool. What's the one thing you're going to go do, right? To Greg's nutrition or fitness analogy earlier, it's like diet and exercise. That's what helps us have the fitness and health levels that we want. It's not knowing what to do. It is knowing what to do next, so that you see the results and the progress that internally compels you to do the next thing, right? Cool, thanks. So here's where the breakdown starts to happen, is it's in having disconnections across that journey, like we have here. And where the most important ones are, because I don't think all stages in lifecycle marketing are created equal. I think there's growth levers in there, and I think there's ones that cost us even more. And I think it's these three actually, on capture and close and multiply, right? You've got to have those other pieces in there, but these are the biggest, most important ones. So our goal, go ahead to the next slide. Our goal is to not have these gaps, right? So the first thing is we want to create a complete customer journey. Go ahead and hit the next slide, please. And by doing that, what we're trying to do is fill these gaps. Go ahead and hit that. So we can seal the cracks and we can weld the tracks. That's the number one thing. So even though I made fun of the really janky roller coaster earlier, that's actually the better roller coaster to build. Rather than build a really expensive loop that is incomplete, I'd rather build one that actually goes all the way around. Okay, so we want to seal the cracks, weld the tracks. Go ahead and click the next slide, please. So that's step one, is create a complete customer journey. Step two is design a great customer journey. So first, get the thing working for you, right? Get the thing working so people are buying tickets and they're riding. And while they're buying tickets and riding, you can now invest on how do I upgrade it, right? How do I make it even better? Okay, so what do I mean by that? Go ahead and click, and then you're going to click again in just a second, Greg. So what we mean is we don't want this ride. Go ahead and click. We do want this ride, right? So in both cases, we've got a couple riding a ride, at an amusement park. What is happening in there is totally different. So this is where it's not just the mechanics, it's the marriage of the message and the mechanics to create emotion. And it is emotion that has someone decide if they're going to ride again or tell others that they should come. And then step three is to automate it, for the point that I made before. So what do? Create a complete customer journey. So as you're applying this right now, being like, okay, cool, I get all this, because I know you do get all this. It's looking through, where do my tracks fall off? Where do people fall off, right? Or where do they not fall off, but they're propped up by me, like Atlas holding my business up, that if I take a vacation, it all falls down, right? If the person that handles this gets sick, it all falls down. So the automation piece here is what creates the consistency to make sure that the ride works, and it works for you while you work for the business and live the life that you want. That's the most important thing. But it starts with, I've seen a lot of people, and Greg, you've probably seen this too, they buy a fancy schmancy automation tool and they're like, cool, like let me start, building stuff, instead of getting clear on what's the journey we're trying to build. How do we build it in a way that's actually gonna get people to know what they need to know, to believe what they need to believe, to do what they need to do, and then how do we go implement that, right? Jamie, you may have seen that as well, right? Cool, next slide. I think, Greg, you say, something around strategy, right? A tool is only as good as a strategy.
Yeah, I think the recipe for success with Infusionsoft or any tool is three parts. It is the strategy, which is what you're setting out to do. It is the tool or the set of tools that you will use to accomplish that strategy, and then it is the training or the expertise to use those tools to execute on that strategy. If any piece of that equation is missing, it'll fall down. And interestingly, it'll fall down in different ways depending on which piece is missing.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're real tech minded and like tech oriented, this thing we're talking about, lifecycle marketing in this framework, I've used it in every business that I've been a part of, since I've learned it. And we've used a lot of different tools. We've used Infusionsoft and Keep. I've used HubSpot. I've used Salesforce. We use Salesforce and Marketing Cloud right now at ALU. In my own business, I use Infusionsoft. We've got another one that we're only using Kajabi. We're not even using a robust CRM under it. It's actually just simple stuff. I've seen people use it, putting together Zapier and MailChimp and so forth, right? So the technology is irrelevant. You only use the technology so that it serves A, the customer journey you're creating, and B, it serves you back, that it doesn't break so often that it creates stress and anxiety and has you come, bail it out. At which point you want to use, you want to advance your tools, right? So that's the reason the technology exists, is to create the customer experience and serve you back so that you can trust in serving the customer experience. I think the mecca of all of this is that gumball machine analogy, right? Like what we want to know how many gumballs do you want, and I can tell you how many quarters that you need to put in. And at ALU, that's what we've done. We know exactly what it's going to cost us to get from here to here to here to here. So we know how much it's going to cost to buy a raving fan, how much it's going to cost to buy a customer, how much it's going to cost to buy a prospect or an applicant, and so forth. That's what we're trying to get to. This is true. This is possible, but it's possible only when you build it all the way through, when you build these things in order, right? You get clear on designing a complete customer experience and journey. And when I say, customer, I mean from acquisition or even awareness, right? Leads, prospects, and customers, all the way to actual paying customers. I'm using that term synonymously with the person who's eventually going to do business with you, we hope. So here's a real life example with ALU, because it's fresh. I did a webinar on this topic for Keep, I did a webinar a week or two ago that Gregory had referred to on this topic. And then I did one for them a few weeks before, and I did it on Authority Football, my small business. So the point is there's two different examples of this, on two different ends of the spectrum. So ALU is pretty globally recognized. It seems like a really big business, bigger than most of the sort of small businesses for the type of entrepreneur that might be on this webinar, type of entrepreneur I am in my own small businesses. The point is that this is not a framework that only works for big businesses or works because they're big businesses. This is actually the framework that gets you from a small business to whatever size business you want to be. Greg was a key player in the 2016-2017 ALU project that I was involved in. And it was the way we grew the business from, we launched an MBA program, we opened a second campus and grew the business to where a year ago I came back in and took it over and have since basically 10x'd the numbers this year, right? So it is not, what you do when you get to a certain place. It's actually the vehicle you use to get you to a certain place. Go ahead and click that. And I'm going to show you just a couple really tangible examples of this working in real life, because conceptually we get all these things. So when you see this, you're one of two types of people. You see numbers and a table, and you're either getting like cold sweats and heart palpitations, or you are like leaning in and being like, sweet, let's get into some numbers. So I've got a table on the right, and I've got just a really simple, pretty graph on the left. It really displays both the same information. What's important is not the details. What's important is on the left, that is this year at ALU for the 2020 cycle. So you can see a obnoxiously steep increase in our students this year. And that's actually one of our campuses, just to keep it simple. It'd actually be steeper if we included both campuses, right? The only difference is how we use lifecycle marketing, this year. Okay. All right. On the right, you see, again, all the details don't matter, but what you see is an average increase of 329% improvements across all KPIs, which is, pretty damn good, right? So go ahead and click that next slide for me, Greg. Thanks for the poll. Most people loving the charts. Good. Then we're speaking your love language right now. So let's translate that, because those numbers are irrelevant to you. I want to try to, anchor them to something that might be more relevant to you. So something really simple, even if you're like a service business and 5 clients, 10 clients, 15, 20 clients is kind of the units that we're talking about, right? So imagine they're in the red, 2019. If a small business has 100 leads and 26 prospects and 10 qualified offers, and you've got a 43-day sales cycle, and then 7 sales from that, imagine an improvement of 329% average across those, and you're seeing numbers like that, right? That we're doubling your sales. Go ahead and click the bullets for me. Go ahead and click through them. Leave it on this slide, but I think there's probably 4 or 5 bullets. So those numbers show this. I just clicked through all of them. Yeah. Imagine doubling your sales. Imagine tripling your list. Imagine closing sales 5 times faster than you currently do. Imagine cutting your cost of acquisition by 70%. That's what we did this year. Imagine increasing your lifetime customer value by 20%, right? And those numbers, like, they seem sort of rhetorical almost. But when you think about it for a second, literally double the sales, but also cut the cost of acquisition by 70%. Also decrease the sales cycle so it's 5 times faster. Also increase each of those sales that we've now doubled the amount of by 20%. This is exponential growth, which is what you saw. It's exponential. Each of these things magnifies the other. So it's not, we didn't just double, right, the number of units, right? We doubled, like we more than doubled revenue, right? We're tripling, quadrupling revenue, as well as building one of the most valuable assets in our company, which is, of course, an audience, and even more valuable than that, an audience that is now massive brand advocates for us, which is more valuable than the revenue that these people offer us anyway, because we're on a massive growth trajectory. So building raving fans is more valuable than the revenue they bring us this year. So that's really important. So imagine, like, what if that were true for you this next month? Like in July, what if you actually doubled that revenue? And I'm not going to ask you to put it into the chat, but I am going to ask you to stop and think, how much money am I making in June? How many clients did I get? And I'm going to ask you to think, if I doubled it, what would it be? What would it be in revenue or clients? What would it mean for you? And then I'm going to ask you, and again, I'm not going to ask you to share it, but I'm going to ask you to actually think, what would that mean for you? Not as a business owner, not as a CEO, but you, the human. What would that make true for you in your life that isn't true in June of 2020? And think through that, and then ask, okay, great, what can I do next that I'm thinking about, or that this is pointing you towards in your own business that can start to take a positive step to make that true? Because we're trying to build a business that we want, and not one we wake up one day and unfortunately have. And I'm telling you, this is it. This is how you do it. Okay.
Jamie said she had her best month, 2020 month in June, and doubling that seems wild in a great way. Jamie, I just want to point out that June isn't done yet. So kudos, but yeah.
That's amazing, Jamie. Awesome. Okay, so again, looking at that chart on the right, and by the way, that chart is not something I created for this webinar. I literally just took a screenshot out of a deck we were aligning on with the team a few weeks ago. Okay, if you map those things over, they actually map directly to the lifecycle marketing framework and the stages of that customer journey. Right, so those are the numbers that are indicators about that predictability and the predictability of how likely someone is to do the next thing in the journey that you've designed. This is how you know when I put a quarter in and I turn the knob that a gumball is going to get released, it's going to roll down the thing, and it's going to come out. Right, that's what we're talking about. And while that's a cute little metaphor, that's not literally, that is exactly the concept and predictability we're talking about. I'm not in the gumball business, right? We are trying to produce ethical entrepreneur leaders, right? So cool, hit that next one. So these are the real numbers. These are the real numbers that came in. Let me see if I can see them real quick. Which numbers? Yeah. So these are the real numbers for ALU that map over underneath each of those stages. Go ahead and hit the next one. So those of you who like numbers and charts, what's that? 89% of the people like numbers and charts. Cool.
We also have a few people sharing, Rob and Elizabeth sharing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Rob. Spending more time with family, travel, right? Less stress.
Rob's daughter recently beat cancer, by the way.
Rob, phenomenal. He was on the call a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
your tribe call, awesome, Rob. Good to see you again. And congrats, man. Like, what's the point of all this crap if that's not, like, if that's not true? It's great. Awesome. Yeah. So okay. So back to these numbers. What we looked at was what's the most important numbers that we want. And, as we were going through this 2020 cycle, we had to change the default future. We looked at, okay, based on these numbers, where are we likely going to end up? How many gumballs are we going to end up with? And this is the power of creating predictable growth, is saying, okay, if that number is not right, what do I need to go push on? what area should I focus on that changes all other numbers, right? That makes everything else be true that I need to be true. Because there's so many things you can focus on. It's where's my leverage point, okay? And that's what we looked at here. So go ahead and hit that next slide.
And this is where, like, you can listen to all of this and nod along and then still do nothing with it, and nothing will change, right? So agreeing with this or understanding this on its own is only the first piece of the equation. Where he's transitioning, which is, I believe, like how to inform action out of this or how to extract action out of this is like really where this becomes a tool or a weapon to use in your own business.
That is actually the point, right? You can see the graph at the bottom left, right? That graph can be completely meaningless to you right now. But if you lean into it for a second, I think data-driven people, entrepreneurs, et cetera, like this tells a story. And this story is really, really relevant, okay? And I just highlighted the main points there. But for us, we knew that the most important lever for us to get qualified students, by the way, the students who are going to go change the continent of Africa, the ethical entrepreneurial leaders who we're going to empower and connect to go, change the default future of a continent. What's the single most important thing we as a marketing and sales team could go push on? And it was started applications. It was the number one thing, because we knew if we had this many started applications, we'd have this many submitted, we'd have this many admitted, and we'd have this many enrolled. That's what that machine comes down to, because we've got consistency, because we automate it, because we measure it. That is how you make this happen. Okay, so those really interesting points there. You can see number one, that's when we opened the application. Okay, and you can see for months, and I think that's back in October, if you can see the dates. For months, it just barely peaked and it hovered for months because we weren't putting quarters in the machine yet, right? We actually were just letting the machine sort of hum, somewhat organicking. Okay, and so when I say predictability, I want to make this really, really clear.
Justin. You're saying when you didn't put quarters in the machine, what in real world terms you mean you hadn't done any paid advertising?
Yeah, we hadn't really started to invest in traffic.
So the application was live. People could organically find it or seek it out on their own, but you hadn't like switched the machine on.
That's exactly right. Thanks for clarifying. So it just hovered, and as you can see, it hovered very predictably at 400 to 550 applications every single month. That's what it did. So here's the thing. Predictable isn't inherently good or bad. It's predictable. And this is the unfortunate part, is sometimes what predictability does, it says, I predict with a high degree of confidence you're not going to succeed. That we don't like to acknowledge that, but that level of predictability now says, okay, cool. What's going to happen is not what you want. And what are you going to do about it? What can you do about it? And this is where the empowerment starts to take place. So as you can see in number 2, we have a massive spike. And if you could see what that spike looked like, the number 2 spike that you can see, which is where we opened the ads and we had basically kind of like an affiliate partner that was promoting one of his scholarships with us. We got all kinds of new eyeballs and it spiked tremendously. And our team couldn't believe, as you see how steep that is, how high that was. Obviously, looking later, you see it grows significantly more after that. Then you can see it drops in number 3. You can see it goes down. Number 3, that third point, our credit card that the ads were on actually maxed out and the ads turned off. At that point in time, we were driving one application every minute. Every 60 seconds, a new college application was coming in. And over the weekend, we were losing an application a minute, and you can see it go down there instead of still going back up. So we lost that week's period of time to turn the machine back on, right? So we got it all fixed, and got the credit card taken care of. We got the cash all figured out so that the credit card would keep humming, right? This is a big, globally recognized university, and we've got credit card problems as far as like keeping, we got Facebook problems like everybody else. And then once we were there, we maxed out. We maxed out how much we could spend. This is where the gumball machine takes place. It was essentially, how many gumballs do you want? How much can we spend to get those gumballs? And when you're on the gold, you dig, right? It's like if you ever watch the gold mining show with the Alaskan gold miners, or whatever. They got like this short window where it's not frozen and snowy. And when they're like, they literally work around the clock because it's going to be a blizzard. The winter comes back. And so when you're on the gold, like, you just dig, you have to keep the machine on. And that's what you can see happening there with number 4. And at 5, we actually turned the machine off. We had overfilled those 22,000 applications that you see there. And actually in the left of the screen, you see it's over 23,000. That was a couple weeks ago. I think we're at 25 or 26,000 now, because we turned the machine back on number 6. Why did we turn the machine back on in number 6? We're wondering if we were over full. This is what's really, really cool. We actually needed more females and more females in Rwanda to balance out. So now, like, the business came back and said, cool, we've got too many of the orange and blue gumballs. We need more of like the pink and red gumballs. Can you go find more of those? And we actually calibrated the machine to say we only want this color gumball, and turn the machine on. And now we're hitting 1,000 applications of female Rwandans every single week, right? And we just now turned that off because we're filled up there too. That's what I mean, and that's what's possible when you can build a gumball machine like that, and you have that predictability around each of these stages. A variety of gumballs is important. Yeah, it depends on what your business needs. I think any gumball is usually a good thing, and then for us, right, we're trying to fine tune it to make sure we've got exactly the right type of gumballs, because we've only got a certain number of seats. Those 23,000 applicants, only 800 students. That's it. We only had seats for 800 students. Okay, cool. Let's see here. So what was that for us? That was $3 an application, right? So that's $3 an application is what we were spending on our primary paid source, paid traffic source. Cool. All right, Elizabeth has a good question. I'm going to go to the next slide there for me, Greg. Don't customer journey vary based on traffic source? And some of what creates overwhelm for us tiny business. Elizabeth, can you clarify the question? Because I'd love to give a response to it. Yeah, so the traffic source, and I'm showing you the biggest volume. So she talked about, Elizabeth's talking about like a speaking at a live conference versus a Facebook app. So first off, like a traffic source is nothing but eyeballs, right? And then your initial attract content is the message and mechanics of how you're going to put that in front of as many of the right eyeballs as possible. You get to decide where the right eyeballs are. For us, we're literally trying to communicate to a continent, right, of very specific aged people who are 1 year away from being able to go to a university, right, in Africa. So it's very, very specific. For us to do that at scale, we have a ground game. So we actually are doing speaking events, right? The speaking events have a different, essentially kind of P&L. They have a different cost of acquisition over there. For us, it's a ground game and air attack. But like if you're speaking at a conference, that's one of your primary lead sources. The same thing is true. You get to know, okay, how many eyeballs do I have in the audience? What's my lead capture from that audience, right? How many people, if there's 100 people in the audience, how many people are going to opt in for the free giveaway I'm going to give them? Or how many people are going to opt in for, a consultation, at or after the conference? From there, how many people are going to, convert to a qualified sales opportunity? From there, how many people will I close? So it's really just knowing all roads lead to your conversion, your offer play. For us at ALU, it's the application process itself. At 6th Division, it was our sales consultation. For us, it was a strategy session. So all roads plug into that conversion mechanism, and now you can drive those different traffic sources into that single conversion mechanism. And that's how hey, this one's not carrying its weight over here, right? And for us, when you saw the chart a few slides ago, before we spiked the first big one, we weren't spending any money on paid advertising. It was only the ground game. And the ground game was, creating the 550 applications a month. So it's just getting clear on what is the right traffic source for you based on who your leads are, and how you get them to know what they need to know, to believe what they need to believe, to do what they need to do.
Let me add some context. Here's how I think about it. Right, your customer experience is the sum of all of the journeys throughout your business, right? It's the composition of all of those individual journeys. Each individual customer, their journey is going to be like specific to them, right? It's individual. But what you as the business owner or entrepreneur are responsible for is the experience, right? So the way you control, overwhelm happens when you have an infinite number of journeys that you are struggling to maintain, right? If you've got too many different pathways, some are going to be dead ends and some are going to be off of cliffs and such. And so as a business owner, you can be strategic in terms of where you point the traffic so that it's only going to journeys that you have intentionally refined or designed, or the pathways that you have paved. And that's something that I haven't gotten right the entire time. Like, this is an iterative process that you may have dead ends or junctures that like have steep, drop-offs that just aren't intentional. And that's okay. That's the reality. But what you want to do with your paid traffic or the majority of your traffic moving forward is steer it towards pathways that lead somewhere that you are in control of, and that is by design rather than by happen chance or happenstance, or whichever one is the real word.
Cool. Yeah, there's a great dialogue happening around this misconception. Jamie called it out. Misconception, you have to run paid ads to see success. Not at all. You've got to find where are the right eyeballs for your offer that you can help, and then get your get your message and mechanics in front of as many of those right eyeballs as possible. That's it. That's what you're trying to do. Okay. And at LU, we got multiple channels. Okay, cool. Now, what numbers matter most? These are business metrics. This is the gumball machine. And at first glance, you might be like, cool, that's great. Your marketing team is so great, J-Mac. It's not the point. What's the cost of that, right? Remember what I talked about with like the multiply is where it all comes from? Like multiply is where the flywheel starts to happen, that people buy more, buy again, or tell others. So we surveyed all of our applicants. And as you saw, 23,000 people started the official academic part of the application. 56,000 people started the first step of the application, which was actually a leadership assessment. We use that to filter people out before they go any further. So we've got 56,000 people that have started an application for ALU. We asked all of them, how likely are you to refer ALU to your friends? That's an army, right, of 56,000 advocates who didn't see us on Facebook. They started a leadership application, which was a 20-minute psychological capacity assessment, and then went through a whole bunch of other stuff. And a college application is not a ride in the park. There's a lot of things you have to go through and submit, and et cetera. And 99.6% of them said they would recommend LU. Like, that's unfathomable, right? They haven't even bought the product yet, and we're now creating an army of people that said this was transformative for me, and I absolutely would recommend. That's the most important thing. And then there's a third metric that I believe is even more important. What's the cost of that? Did we run our team into the ground to make those numbers, that like 329% growth true, or the customer's always right and my team doesn't matter? No, I was here for a year, as of May, and I said, I want to see how our team is doing, the culture of our team that we've rebuilt around this, and how likely are you to recommend a friend or colleague to work in this team? And as you see, it's 100%. Right, the team's about 25 full-time employees, and then there's a whole network of interns inside. After that, 100% said yes, they would recommend that someone would work there. One of the coolest stats. This is where I get geeked up as a leader. One of the other questions I asked in this survey was, have you been offered another job for more money since you've worked here? Okay, so that's a team of I don't know. You do the math; it ends up being over 30 or 40 people. 48% of my team has been offered a job for more money, yet all 48% are still here. That's an unfair business advantage, right? I believe professional joy, living a life of impact and joy as an entrepreneur, is loving what you do, who you do it for, and who you do it with, right? And who you do it with is your team. It's also, your contractors and so forth. That's the most important thing. This is what's creating that flywheel. Now, where did we get the time and energy and space to invest in our team so that all of them say, I absolutely would recommend this? Well, it's because we built a machine. We built a gumball machine that's serving our customers, right? And now our customers are doing our marketing for us. And now we have a time as leaders to work on the business, right? The cliche we all hear about. How do you actually earn the time to work on the business? This is it. And like I said at the beginning, it's not easy. It's just true. It's not, like we talked about, it's not knowing these things. It's actually implementing them and believing in it and being committed to it. And that's what we're looking at here. Cool. Stephen, great question. What an interesting employee retention metric. Did you ask them why they didn't want to leave for more money? Yeah, we did. In the open text, it actually is phenomenal what people said there. And the short answer, Stephen, and for anybody else that's interested, the short answer, there's two primary reasons. One, this mission is meaningful and magnetic, and this is what I want to be doing in my life right now. Two, this is a place that I have grown in irrevocable ways, and I still have more growing to do because we've created an environment that multiplies me as a person, as a professional, and as a leader. And I don't believe I can get that anywhere else right now. Those are the two reasons that people are in the team. Cool. Let's wrap this bad boy up. Greg, you want to hit that next slide?
Yeah, I was responding to Austin, who asked about there being a replay. There will be a replay. I'm going to do some editing to try to clean up some of the filler Greg Jenkins, song and dance show at the beginning, and get right to the content. And I will say this: I plan to give everyone the recording for probably a maybe 48-hour window, and then it's going to move to the OG webinar archive area. But I felt guilty not making the webinar replay available to everyone, just because I know the timing couldn't work for everyone. So for at least a short period of time, I'm going to get that out there. And then Austin, I think you're an OG, so you'll have is a Paloma entry time. Yeah. Mike, the piece I clip out, I'll send to just you, Mike, who's gonna miss the Greg Jenkins song and dance show. Jamie said become an OG member. I promised no pitching, guys. So that's all I'll say about that. Okay, Justin, back to you.
All right. Yeah, thanks, guys. This was literally a 59-minute presentation, including all the intro, and we obviously had some interruptions at the beginning. So let's finish up here. So imagine your business being a place where 100% of the team loved working there. There's 3 on this, Greg, so you can click to the next 2. So imagine that's maybe the most, I think, important metric of all those that we just looked at. Next, there we go. 99.6% of your customers recommend you to their friends, and you grow your revenues 2 to 3 times as a result. Like literally imagine that. And then what if you could manifest that? What would that look like for you? What would you do with that margin, right? In your business and in your life? How would you use that margin to explore and expand, either grow the business or invest in other things and so forth?
So this is also like sort of where the gumball analogy breaks down, right? Is like, you put in a quarter and a gumball comes out. Like that's predictable. But where it becomes advantageous for a business is when like you put in a quarter and a gumball comes out, and then the gumball shouts back into the machine to 3 of his buddies, and he says, "It's great out here." And those 3 gumballs help themselves to come out without you putting in more quarters. That's where the multiply stage is so powerful. And unfortunately, where that otherwise masterful analogy starts to fall apart. Although if we personify those gumballs, it works just fine.
It does work perfectly. And that's the idea. It is a buy 1 gumball, get 3 gumballs free, right? That's what we're trying to create when that happens. So thanks, Greg. Now I see little like personified cartoon faces on the gumballs coming out of there. It plays.
That's right. You're welcome for that.
Imagine if those 3 things or things like those were true. Would that be a business you'd actually want and not one you wake up one day and unfortunately have? Team, my whole existence as a professional, after getting like kicked in the guts and being like paralyzed with anxiety and fear as an entrepreneur at different points in my life, and I imagine we've shared some degree of that together in our own journeys too, has been coming to that realization that we can do anything we want. And joy for me professionally, which is where we spend most of our time, actually, is in our professions, our businesses, our jobs, whatever, is doing doing something you love, for people you love, with people you love. And I use the word love intentionally in the way that I define it, right? But ultimately it's joy, right? That's it. That means when crap hits the fan, I'm doing it with people that we're like, all right, dig in, let's get this thing fixed, right? When a customer's got a problem with a complaint, I'm like, dig in, we're here to serve them. They're not a pain in my ass. I got to get this thing out of their way so they can get where they're going. That means everything I do, no matter how stressful it might be, is meaningful. And it makes waking up in the morning easy. That's it. That's what this game is about. And while that might be a long way around the block to make it happen, I believe the thing that empowers it actually is that framework for the ways that I've laid it out here today. Go ahead and hit that next slide for me, Fred. I'll call you Greg.
It's a compliment. I'll take it.
Yeah. So where do you start? Which I think was exactly what David was asking. First, assess your customer journey. Okay, look at it and see where there are gaps. 2, fix the parts that are most important. And then once you fix that, put more people into that journey. Right? And then you simply repeat until you get desired results. At ALU, the red box on the right, we saw it was our application journey. Our application was, we were literally paying to have such a terrible application and admissions experience that we were paying to create detractors. That 99.6% promoter rating that I showed you, it was not that. It was way worse, right? And
hold on. Let me underscore what he just said. They were paying to create detractors, right? And that is true for far too many businesses, right? If your customer experience is suboptimal, any money you spend on paid traffic, right, if it's producing a majority of detractors, right, you are doing a disservice to your brand, period. Go ahead.
I love what Brett's talking about. This is awesome, guys, getting into it. So fix that thing. The number one place for us was the application admissions experience, because all roads lead to it. It was the experience that 100% of our future customers were going to come through, and that was a shared experience. And when they get on campus, guess what they're going to talk about? What a shit show that was, right? Instead of what an amazing experience, what could possibly be next? Plus, every applicant goes through that experience, and I want to harness those leads as marketing, right? Okay, so once we did that, then we said, okay, how do we put more people into that journey? And that's where we got clear on the front end about how do we capture and engage. And that's where we built the marketing engine to get people to know what they need to know, to believe what they need to believe, to do what they need to do. And that's that engagement content. And I'll show you exactly how we chose what content to write in there in just a second. All right, cool. Next one. Yeah, Jade, really great point. Jade's point was, if your business is new, is a relevant takeaway to simply implement lifecycle marketing, get a good data tracking system. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's 100% it. So real quick, what we did, this is also a screenshot, literally just laid over lifecycle marketing to show you. Someone was asking about Trello or whatever. Like these are literally the columns we built as we were looking at our comprehensive playbook at ALU. The numbers actually aren't relevant to you. They're relevant to us because we found out what are the plays, we call them plays. What are the plays that are pulling the most weight, that are touching the most people, and therefore create the biggest leverage point for what we want to tweak. Okay, and for us, paid and organic traffic through our social channels was one of our biggest. We had over 90 million eyeballs and people in those audiences, so that's big, right? We knew it worked. We had over 820,000 visitors to the website in 2020 alone. That's huge. That's an asset. And then we had over 52,000 started applications come through there. That's really important. And then 4,000 hit the enrollment portal, and 800 actually go through this honeymoon stage, right? And honeymoon is important because it's setting. I think Elizabeth talked about that. The honeymoon, it's fulfilling the promise of the courtship. It's fulfilling the promise of the magic you've created all that time, and it's setting the expectation for how the rest of the engagement, the relationship is going to go. At ALU, we actually dropped the ball a lot on this in the past. We'd finally get them here, and they would show up to school beat to crap, of trying to get their visas and, get their documentation.
Against all odds, yeah, just like against this gauntlet of obstacles to get there, yeah.
Exactly. So we lay that over, and these become our primary complete customer journey. Right, so this is the track, the single track we wanted to create. Do we have other plays? Yes, but this is the most important track that we have. This is the complete journey I was talking about. Now, how do we elevate it and make it better? Go ahead and click the next one. We have other plays, and they lay over for us. They lay over kind of like this. So these are other key plays in those two categories of awareness and engagement, right? Which sort of cross, the target, attract, and the capture and engage for us, okay? And so those are our plays there. Now, you can keep going. That's great, Greg. So you're like, great, you've got some plays. What do we say? What's the content we actually put in there? And I'm going to break this down in like one slide. There are so many great frameworks out there around, messaging and so forth. But they all really point to the same thing. Your marketing and sales has only one job to do. It's to get people to know what they need to know, to believe what they need to believe, to do what they need to do. So instead,
Jamie Hayes called this out earlier. He said he wrote it down the first time you said it.
This is it. This works. This is a universally applicable and accurate and real-time way to look at what should I write in my email? What should I say in my subject line? What should I do, on my website to capture leads? Where should I do my marketing? Well, what do you want people to do? First off, who are you looking for? And then what do you want them to do? In this stage, this is the value of staging like the lifecycle marketing framework is I know, okay, they're in this stage. I don't get them to over here and be a fan. I get them from here to the very next stage. What do I need them to do in order to do that? What's the mechanism to do it? Now, what do I need them to believe to take action on that mechanism? And based on that, what do I need them to know to believe that? And that's where I decide, okay, what's the message and mechanics? Is a webinar the right way? Is an email series the right way? Is an ad the right way? Is a live speaking event the right way? And then ultimately, what do I say? All those other things are just mechanics of that. This will always be the right answer from a micro to a macro way to look at your content.
Yeah, and I think it's important to call out that how many times you choose to have your webinar drop out is like a strategic decision that every business needs to make for themselves, right? That's an advanced tactic to really like vet the audience you have and to see how hungry they are. So if you just are new to hosting webinars, maybe you have it run fluidly. I don't know. But if you're like a pro, you stage at least 2 complete audio disconnects just to test your people.
Yeah, this is pretty advanced stuff. Greg and I've been doing this for a while. A little pro tip. Have your webinar run long because you can't connect with basic internet connectivity. Cool. So what does that really look like, and how can you maybe use that? So at ALU, this is the controlling idea for absolutely every single thing that we do. Everything will ladder up to this, and it's what makes everything actually work, right? It's what makes the roller coaster actually work. So at ALU, we want our prospects to believe that I'm a mission-driven entrepreneurial leader, passionate about solving Africa's grandest challenges. That's what we want them to believe. And ALU is the best place in the world to equip me to live a life of impact. So when you're like, cool, what do you write on your ads? What do you put in your emails? What do you follow up with at your live events? What are your webinars about? What does your application do? You keep talking about this leadership assessment. What are all these things? It's to create this belief in our leads, prospects, applicants, and students that they are, in fact, mission-driven entrepreneur leader, passionate about Africa's grand challenges, and that they believe ALU is the single best place in the world to equip them to live the life of impact as determined and defined by their definition. That's the most important thing. And that one sentence is how everything lines up. It's also how we have a team that can be completely autonomous. They can decide, hey, what's a way I can get someone to decide this, right? What if we had an exercise where they define their values and their mission? What if we have webinars with key experts on Africa's grand challenges, which are like the sustainable development goals? What if we have a podcast related to what entrepreneurial leadership actually is? What if we had a leadership assessment that helped assess your entrepreneurial leadership qualities? What are those qualities? So everything we do comes to this. If you want to steal, I didn't write it as a tool. If you want to steal that sentence for your ideal customer, and there's a million of those frameworks, this one has been super, super true. And I've actually gone back to my other businesses and used this. I am a blank that is blank, and your company is the best place in the world for me to blank. If you have that, you'll get super clear on what your lifecycle marketing content should be across that entire journey.
Will you say that again, the structure, and somebody can type it up in the chat for us?
Yeah, I was just adding blanks to this, right? So you want your leads or prospects or customers to think, I am a blank. That identity, the consistency of them identifying with that is the most important thing you can create for them, right? I am a blank who wants to blank. And your company, right, is the best way in the world for me to blank.
Thanks, Brett. Perfect. Yeah. I don't want to, people can spend time with that, but I wanted to say it really clearly again for the live folks to catch it and also anyone on the recording, because I think that's powerful.
Cool. Next slide.
What is the one thing you want your customers to believe? Yeah,
so that's actually a great segue. So if you does anybody know what that is? Like, what's the one thing you want them to believe? And we actually just sort of created a template for it. So I'd love to hear as we finish the last couple slides. Does anybody want to share that with everybody here? Like, hey, this is what we want our prospects to believe. For Authority Football, I actually rewrote the same thing, right? Using that exact framework. Okay, so it's clear now exactly who we're writing to, so that when they hear it, they are catalyzed to that emotion that creates that belief, that creates the behaviors that we want. So what do you do now? Go ahead and hit all three for me. One, like I said, you want to assess how are you doing in this, right? And how well are you doing it, and where can you go spend the best time next? I actually helped build a lifecycle marketing assessment that you can quickly go through that gives you a score that says, hey, these are your strengths, like just let that gumball machine keep working. These are the areas right here. If you're going to only choose one thing, this is the thing you would want to go fix, right? That's, I find that the biggest way to get lost is to know, I've got all this stuff I could be doing. Where should I invest my time to actually make meaningful results? That assessment will tell you where you should focus, right? And if you don't, by the way, I don't think there's any follow-up on that. They just give it to you, and you can take the next steps to have a strategy call or whatever. But you can do that with no fear of getting into some funnel. So I would encourage you to do that. 2, once you're clear, decide what to go fix or improve or upgrade or elevate. Actually decide. And then figure out, what do I need people to know, to believe what they need to believe, to do what they need to do? Like, what do I actually go do? And then ultimately automate that. Automate that so that it serves you while you sleep. If you don't do that, then the business will fall down as soon as you try to go live the life that you actually want. And we're not doing that. So I'd love to hear, guys. Thanks for the patience. Thanks for the endurance here. By the way, there are 6 pillars of entrepreneurial leadership. One of them is resilience. So you all, by still being here, have been resilient on that. So kudos for being entrepreneurial leaders there. So my question, and I really would invite and appreciate your engagement here, right? This will help solidify your learning and help you actually take action in a way that's meaningful for you and your business to live the life that you actually want. That's what we're talking about. So what will you do differently based on what you've experienced today? The whole idea was given examples and given a framework that you hopefully bent and looked around and said, okay, where in my business can I do something? Is it on getting clear on what I say over here? Is it getting clear on where maybe the tracks are falling off and I'm losing, I'm not following up with prospects? I think one of the moderately healthy businesses, and you should be answering that while I stall, moderately healthy small businesses do a decent job getting sales calls. And then what they do is they have the sales calls, but if someone doesn't show up to the sales call or the sales call doesn't close, those people go into a void. That's often one of the first and best places you could go. And then think about how many times have you as a customer or a prospect, I should say, really wanted to buy something, but you just got busy because you were trying to run your own business and live your own life, or, survive a global pandemic or whatever, or be a parent to a newborn or, right?
Maybe a brew your own kombucha kit, Justin?
That's right. I've got two open e-commerce carts for a brew your own kombucha kit that I haven't bought yet, and they have not followed up with me. I would have bought probably both if someone would have followed up with me. So that's what I'd love to hear is, what would you do differently today based on what you've seen and experienced? Most of you in the poll said this was useful. Well, where and how? Prove it to me. I'd love to hear that, and I'd love for others to see, because they might get inspired or get clarity on how they can apply it to their own business also.
Well, we've got a handful of comments coming in, but I want to back up to one that Jamie left a few minutes ago where he said, it wouldn't surprise me if you teach LCM to ALU marketing students. And I don't know the ALU curriculum specifically, but I know that we've got designs for virtual courses that will probably touch on concepts of this. Whether or not it uses the LCM vernacular is irrelevant, but the concept is universal, irrefutable, and invaluable. And then we got a few folks who are saying exactly what they'll do as a result of this.
Cool. Thanks. All right. That's it, folks. I'm going to read through some of these. Thanks again. Like we said, it's not easy. It's just true. And I'm trying to share actually really personal examples. Like this is, what I shared from the ALU. That's what I've been living in for the last year. And there were lessons learned and endured at ALU also in 2016, 2017, at 6th Division in the time, between that, and 2 of my own businesses, as well as some businesses I've consulted. Like, these things are just true. And when you put the work in and connect them in the right, it's not just substance, it's sequence. It's not just what do I do, it's when do I do the things to produce these results and ultimately to build this gumball machine. So I encourage you to take one action that will produce that result for you today.